This is ogforums.com Real Talk, an unfiltered, independent perspective on Acumatica Cloud ERP. My name is Tim Rodman, and I want to mention three things in this pre-recorded intro before we get started. First, thank you to our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Paya. Paya offers Acumatica users a suite of industry-leading payment orchestration tools. Far beyond native Acumatica payments, Paya enables EMV NFC terminals for countersale. They offer a frictionless customer portal through their click-to-pay solution, and they support most e-commerce platforms and point-of-sale solutions used with Acumatica, such as One Retail and AcuPOS. And best of all, omni-channel reconciliation is available for all their solutions. Our second sponsor is DataSelf. DataSelf Analytics is a revolutionary reporting solution that enables organizations to make the most informed decisions faster and easier than ever. It uniquely simplifies business intelligence, empowers anyone to build and access dashboards, and delivers critical business insight when and where you need it. Our third sponsor is Aldrich Web Solutions. Are you a distributor using Acumatica, yet struggling with an e-commerce fit? US-based Aldrich Web Solutions out of Marion, Illinois, has 2 decades of experience helping distributors find success online. Our team of experts built the integration, creating websites that work effortlessly with Acumatica. With our reputation for swift customer service and meticulous attention to detail, we are the perfect fit for distributors needing online solutions. Please take a minute to support this podcast by clicking each one of the sponsor banners located at augforums.com/sponsors. Our sponsors track clicks, and every click helps to support this podcast. The second thing I'd like to mention is that I'm always looking for victims. I mean guests. If you use Acumatica in any capacity, no matter how small, I'd love to talk with you. Check out augforums.com/podcast and click the link near the top of the page to learn more about being a guest on the podcast. Third and finally, I'd love to see you listed on my Rolodex. Check out augforums.com/Rolodex to find out who else is using Acumatica and read the instructions at the top to see how you can add yourself to the list. All right, that's it for the pre-recorded intro. Let's get started. Today is Wednesday, January 31st, 2024, and this is episode number 124. You can find related links on the episode page at augforums.com/episode 124. In this episode, you'll hear part 2 of a compilation of interviews done at Acumatica Summit 2024. Since episode 123 and episode 124 are the same topic split into 2 parts, I'm going to use the magic of audio editing to copy the rest of this audio intro into both episodes. This was my 7th time being in person at an Acumatica Summit. If you count the 2 summits during the pandemic that I did not make it to in person, but I did do some interviews virtually, that would make it 9 summits. So I have been around the Acumatica Summits for quite a while, but every time I feel like I'm still trying to figure out how to do Summit. And this time I tried something new, as I do every summit. And rather than attend the sessions, I walked around and interviewed people. Now, in order to stand out, I wore a blue wig, which I will put on the episode page for both of these episodes to help people find me. And I really just embraced the random nature of bumping into people. I could have scheduled things out, but I just went with the random. and I really liked it. I've always struggled in the past with how much of Summit to schedule, scheduling. I want to meet so-and-so and so-and-so and, build out the schedule of people I want to see and when versus just kind of randomly letting things happen. And it's always a struggle, but I just embrace the random nature of walking the halls and bumping into people. The interviews you'll hear vary quite a bit. There are some people are longer interviews. I think the shortest one is probably around 5 seconds with a tip about walking shoes. Even someone who felt they had nothing to share did have one tip to share in about 5 seconds. So quite a varying array of lengths and topics, and I loved it. It was a great way to have an excuse to talk to different people about different things. You'll hear even in part one of episode 123, you'll hear me talk to the person who participated in the demo during one of the keynotes, who shared his credit card information with Acumatica. And then he circles back around in part two. He found me this time and shared a follow-up, which was pretty cool. So you've got something like that. And then, of course, I like reporting, as we all know. And I, just talked about different things with different people. Before I had done a test with my laptop where I let it record all night using the microphone I was going to use and with the laptop lid closed, because the most amount of battery that gets consumed on my laptop is to keep the screen bright. And I wanted to see how long it would last, and it lasts like 8 to 10 hours, something like that. So I'm like, all right, I'll be just fine keeping the laptop lid closed, walking around with the mic. And I did that for I don't know how many interviews it was, but starting right during the second half of my conversation with Mike C., my guess is that the USB cable to the computer was too loose. And so the recording just stopped and I didn't realize it. So I actually lost a few interviews until I discovered it, including the second half of a conversation with Mike C., the CTO at Acumatica. We were talking about the new UI and how it's much more than just a new user interface. And I'm hoping to be able to get him back on the podcast just to have an entire episode talking about that. But unfortunately, that part of the conversation was lost, and several other interviews, including another AUG-SQL interview. So there is one AUG-SQL interview that made it in, you'll hear, but the first one was unfortunately lost. And I was actually surprised that even just with the random nature of the interviews, bumping into people, I happened to land on 2 people who use AUG-SQL, and that was pretty cool. So that was a challenge technically. I lost a few interviews there. Another technical challenge you'll hear during my interview with Jane Williams, that the second part of the interview is really weird. Like something went wrong with the recording. And I think it was, actually, I don't even know what it was. The audio wasn't great. And so we then tried to clean it up and lost the original in the process. And you'll hear that the cleaned up part is like cutting out a bunch of stuff. And the reason was because, actually, I'm sorry, we didn't lose the original part. The original part had this really loud noise in the background. And so the cleaned up version at least doesn't have that, so you can at least listen to it, but it's cutting out parts frequently. And for some reason, mostly when Jane's talking and not when I'm talking. And I don't know, it makes you wonder if there's some gender bias in the AI that was used to do whatever magic it did to pull out the annoying noise. So unfortunately, we had that technical challenge. But other than those 2 things, I think it went pretty well. And now I just know, keep the laptop lid open, just keep the brightness down. The battery still did okay. And just make sure after every interview, it's still recording. And so, just part of the nature of trying something for the first time. But and you'll hear, I didn't count the number of interviews yet, but there were quite a few. So at the time of this recording, I don't know what it was. And even though, in the intro to each of these episodes, I like saying the day that these interviews happened. It was actually across 3 days, January 29th, January 30th, January 31st. But I'm actually recording this intro March 8th, 2024, because it's taken me that long to get back to this project. I knew it would be quite a bit to put all the interviews together. I've done that hard part, and now I'm doing the easy part of tacking this intro on to the beginning. So it took me longer than I wanted to get this out, but I am getting it out finally. And I really enjoyed doing the interviews. As I mentioned at the beginning of this, every summit, I feel like I'm always struggling with how to quote do summit. And I feel like this year was the best. I'm going to do this again next year. Because, I actually didn't attend any sessions. I realized last year that, the sessions, rightfully so, are more catered to people who are newer in the Acumatica space because it's growing so much. You need content for people who are new to the space. So it's not that I know everything at all, but, a lot of the stuff in the sessions that I attended last year was kind of stuff I mostly knew. And so I decided to skip the sessions this year, and all I did was the interviews when I was at the Win. Now, I think part of why I enjoyed it so much is I did not attend the keynotes in person this time. I watched them virtually. And I like taking notes on Twitter. If you see my Twitter notes, I'll actually put links to my summary blog posts on the episode pages for these episodes. It was so much easier to do on the computer versus on my phone, taking pictures of the screens and then typing on my phone real fast. And also, being an introvert, the whole pump up nightclub feel of the keynotes is just not my thing. So I really enjoyed just watching it from my hotel room. And even my hotel, I'm not a Las Vegas person, so I didn't even want to stay on the Strip this year. Last year I stayed at the Wynn. This year I stayed about 20 minutes out at a Comfort Inn, and I loved it. I love being able to get off the Strip every night and watch the keynotes from my room and then roll in around lunchtime. So really it was just afternoons for me and, some little bit of evening time. And you'll hear one interview when I interview Arlene. It's actually at the party that Acumatica threw Tuesday night, so there's quite a bit of background noise, but still you can hear the audio just fine. Evening activities, but for an afternoon. Otherwise, the morning was just me relaxing in my hotel room, watching the keynotes and taking my time to get to the Win. And for me, that was the way to do it. I feel like it was great. And I really enjoyed all the conversations that I had. And before recording this here on March 8th, I went back and I listened to the approximately 2 hours of interviews, and a lot of stuff I didn't remember. This is always the case when I do this podcast. And it was just great to be reminded of just how many different perspectives I was able to get. And for me, that's the real benefit of the Acumatica Summit, because this is just a time where you have so many people in one place, and if you go around and talk to people, you're embracing the randomness like I did, but you just can't talk to everyone. It's impossible, right? So these 2 episodes are my contribution both to those of you who were at Summit and knowing you can't talk to everyone, but also to those of you who did not make it to Summit. You get an idea of the kind of people you can talk to if you do go. So that's it for my little intro. Now let's go ahead and launch into the interviews. All right, not sure if this is going to be too loud, but I've got Arlene here to extend the conversation about workflows and business events. So you had an additional thing to add with a checkbox or something like that.
Yeah, I was just happy to see that in addition to just being able to respond to information on a dialog box, the use case made sense to me, because you might put something like, if you're going to send an order confirmation, a checkbox appears on the dialog box on screen, and the user can decide, should I send or should I not send this order confirmation? And as they click the checkbox, send or don't send, then my business event can respond to that and conditionally send an order to the warehouse or to the customer based on the user input. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah, so I didn't realize. I thought a button was a button and you didn't get to make the button any more intelligent. Sounds like the button can then know it's not just clicking the button does something, but the button can decide based on conditions whether it actually does something.
Yeah, I like that, and that the user can be in control, which if you're doing anything on a transaction by transaction basis, it makes sense that the user might have reasons of their own to send or not send this confirmation as our hypothetical.
So you talk about checkbox, but I wonder if you could also do like a radio box drop down, like three different options that'll do three different things. The user gets to decide, and then they click OK, and it fires the appropriate business event, something like that.
Yeah, I think if we want to get crazy, we could put those three selection things being email, SMS, or other, and we could even get more complex based on what the use case is. But as long as it's in the inquiry and it's available for us to action against as a data element, I think we can do it.
Very cool. Didn't know that. Thanks for adding that bit of clarity to workflows and business events.
My pleasure.
All right, we got Joe here to talk about how he's using Acumatica at his company.
Yeah, so I'm with Weidemer Packaging, and we do packaging for the ice cream industry, food industry, and...
Ooh, ice cream. Okay, that's my winter antidepressant.
Yeah, it's usually actually pretty low in the winter, but picking up in the summer. So anyway, we were looking for a system. We use spreadsheets forever, and then we're looking at a system where we can do everything in one platform. And Acumatica was just the right thing for us to do for a small business. We're up to 30 people only, so we didn't really spend a lot of money on the big solutions out there. And what's unique for us, we need a lot of traceability and for our products all the way to the end customer. And Acumatica just provided everything. Another nice thing we used was DataCell, for example, as an ISV. We want to look at our data, what's going in, what's going out. So this was a nice add-on right from the beginning. Currently, we're looking into other implementation scheduling, like Link. We're looking into that ISV as well. And now we're looking also into purchase orders, how we can trace our supply chains, because we're using all different kinds of raw materials, so from the raw board to a printed board, all different kind of things. So we have to track where our demands are, and like I mentioned, summer things are ramping up, so our demand or supply on the raw materials is also not always consistent. So we have peaks within the season in the summer, like I mentioned. So tracking inventory levels in supply chains, what's coming in, what's going out, and getting money in. That's why we're looking also into source date, for example, would be a good thing we're looking into right now to use as a supply chain. Yeah, I mean, overall, we're very satisfied with Acumatica as an ERP system for our company, and now trying just to customize it and keep making those changes that fit our needs. But knowing that Acumatica will definitely help us there and will fit our needs.
Can I ask you on traceability? So are you just doing lot tracking? Are you using the lot attribute customization on GitHub? Are you doing something custom? Maybe this is I like getting technical into the weeds. Yeah. This is not a marketing polish podcast. So talk details there maybe.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the regular lot tracking within Acumatica doesn't work quite well for us. Mm-hmm. So we're definitely looking into a different way, because our raw materials can go into different lot numbers at the finished good end. And that's kind of the tricky part here, that the amounts and everything that's going in there. But anyway, so that's kind of...
tell me more about that. So it comes in a PO, and do you give it a lot number when it comes in?
Yeah, we do that, yeah.
And then the problem is you need to split it up into multiple lot numbers before it goes out.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So you just need a way. It's almost like a sales allocations tool, but you need it for lots while it's in inventory.
Yeah, exactly, something like that. And that's kind of still, I mean, we're using it just a year and a half, so we're still exploring the best options for us, but that's kind of the tricky part still, yeah.
So maybe a customization in your future for that.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at that. I spoke with the experts just yesterday at the marketplace with Acumatica, and they provide some solutions within the system, the base system that we have. So we're trying that first, but yeah, it might come down to a custom.
It's funny, at a previous company I worked at, we were on another ERP system, and we had that same challenge, and we ended up just doing it like an access with a stored procedure on the back end because it was SQL based. But it was the same challenge. We need to because you need to split up a lot into multiple lots, and then you have costing layers. It gets tricky in inventory because it's not just change the quantity. You also have to deal with the costs. And but once we got it down, before that they were using kits, and it was just a nightmare to split lots up. But once you invest in getting that tool right, it pays dividends for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's what we're looking for. So, and like I said, we're not scared. We just want to find the right best solution for us. And again, we're confident that we will find either ISVs or Acumatica itself will help us with some customization.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no problem. You're welcome.
All right, I've got Paul here. He's been on the podcast before, and we like to geek out. We're actually going to do a geek out session with Hazen Metro, who's also been on the podcast before. We reminded ourselves when we saw each other. We need to do that virtually in a few weeks. But anyways, we've talked before about low-code customizations and how both of us were afraid of Visual Studio. We just kind of do it in the web browser and the customization project screen. But it sounds like you've changed your tune a little bit since then. Why don't you go ahead and catch us up?
Yeah, so on podcast episode, I think it was 106, you asked the question, have I ever made a DLL file? And I've done a lot of customizations, but I've never actually gone through the process of exporting my code to Visual Studio, compiling the code. Like, why do I have to compile the code? Can't I just write a little business logic in the customization project? So you mentioned that.
Your compile is published project, right?
Correct.
Normally.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, before.
Touche.
Okay.
I mean, all code does
Sure.
compile. But anyway, so you mentioned that. It always sat in the back of my head. And is that?
Nope.
It sat in the back of my head.
Paul hasn't seen Hazen yet. Every bearded guy who walks by, we check. Nope, that wasn't it.
It always sat in the back of my head, and then I finally was like, you know what, let me bite the bullet. I went through the T200 series, and if you've ever gone through one of Acumatica's more technical training material, it's dry, it's boring, it is hard to get through. But as soon as I got through it, I felt like I had this eureka moment. And it actually made customization so much easier. So I ended up programming 2 particular screens for some of our clients that actually the team still raves about how amazing and breakthrough it was for them. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, I was like, it wasn't that hard to make.
Interesting.
And so
Do you think part of why they raved about it had to do with you doing it in Visual Studio, or no, just coincidence there?
I think making it in Visual Studio and having full control, putting breakpoints in it, meaning, I do a function on a screen and I see the where that code might break or when a function might be activated. Sorry if this is getting technical for the non-techies there. But that level of control gives me the flexibility to release screens faster, to customize business logic faster, and not worry about troubleshooting the problems, because I'm pretty much effectively seeing the log of the screen as I'm making changes to it in real time.
Okay.
So it's almost like
it's like a faster iteration.
Yeah.
Okay.
Faster iteration, and the tool of Visual Studio really just gives me the ability to make things, I guess, hardier. So what's that called when code doesn't break as easy?
I don't know, more robust?
Yeah, more robust.
Sure, yeah,
I think there's a term for a techie term. Anyways,
Okay.
yeah. So that's what I'm excited about Acumatica.
Okay. So, I think I've always assumed that with Visual Studio because, the main thing is you can actually try your code out without even compiling, right? So it's just way faster to be like, try something, tweak it, go back and forth, but like it's faster iteration. I knew that. I think it was just always too big for me, but it sounds like you made the jump across that canyon. Yeah. Or are you're going to fact check me on that first assumption? Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the first assumption of you can quickly compile the code. The publish of the customization project was never a huge problem for me, but it was the intricacies of, if you've seen some of the join statements or if you've tried to customize an existing screen, there are so many layers of complexity for maybe an addition that you don't have plugged in, or they built something into the screen that connects with manufacturing, you don't use manufacturing. Does that make sense? So
not completely. Keep going.
Like when I was modifying once the project screen. The project screen can also be the construction edition project screen. It can be also a basic project screen. It deals with cost codes, it deals with equipment. But if I'm not using 90% of the function on this screen, and I'm customizing it, I'm not as confident my customization won't break something down the line.
So Visual Studio sort of pulls the curtain back on some of that extra stuff. You can see it better?
Yes, I can see it better. I can put, again, break statements into the code to see how the code from top to bottom flows through Visual Studio. So
Okay, whereas publishing a customization project is just the whole thing dumps in there, where you can kind of step through the path it's following a little bit at a time.
yeah, I get to see the wizard behind the curtain.
Okay. But then, I guess the point I was making or trying to make was that, all right, let's just say a customization project publish is the equivalent of compile, like
Yes.
in terms of speed and stuff.
Absolutely.
But I guess I was going towards, the point you just made, in that you can run it without even compiling it, right? I mean,
Yeah,
like you
absolutely.
said, you step through it, and that's where you get the
Yeah.
iteration, is that you don't have to wait for a compile to test what you just tried. You can test it in real time, in a sense, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's how you get a lot faster iteration on your development.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And how I have more confidence that I know this isn't going to break because I've seen the code run through top to bottom of this application in the 25 different ways I can test it without having to compile all 25 times.
Okay, so I've walked up to the edge of the 50-foot diving board that is Visual Studio multiple times and just never been willing to jump off. You might have you did it and didn't die. It sounds like. Right?
Yeah. I think 50-foot diving board is being generous. Sometimes it feels like it's like a 100-meter diving board that you're trying to jump off of. But
And I gotta ask you, did you know C# or take any formal C#? How did you get into those waters?
my story is I'm an accidental engineer.
Okay.
I exclusively have learned C#, Python, and a few other languages for direct impact into my business.
Love it. So use case first, code second.
Yeah, honestly.
Okay.
I mean, and again, as long as once you get over the hurdle of thinking logically, most programming languages are pretty similar.
That sounded counterintuitive there. Once you get over the hurdle of thinking logically, so
Yeah.
you're not thinking logic? Describe that more. Once you start thinking illogically, like
No, get over the hurdle of having to think logically.
Oh, okay. All right,
Sorry.
gotcha.
Or
Gotcha.
having to think here literally as
Okay,
well.
okay. Gotcha.
A SQL statement of what does it mean to have ands, ors,
Gotcha.
12 lists of ands, and then an or. How does that
Gotcha.
actually play?
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, good. That makes sense. Well, thank you. Good to know that you made the jump, and that means others can too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a firm believer. Be an expert of the business first and a coder second.
Love it. And your coding journey can progress from low code to Visual Studio. You're evidence of that.
It can happen.
Okay.
It can happen.
Very cool. Okay, update from Jose on the guy who let Doug swipe his credit card during the demo. What did you do with the $50 that Acumatica gave you?
So I split the $50 with my coworker. We went to the casino. The very first chip that I put down, I hit on the roulette on a two red. So I pocket. Anyways, by the end of the night, I walked away with $550, and she walked away with a couple hundred as well.
Nice. So you came into Vegas, you swiped your card for like $1 and change. They didn't ever even charge you for it, and you walked away with 500 something bucks.
Yeah, my wife is excited about that. So
I think you're coming back next year.
maybe, yeah. Actually, 100%. Yeah, 100% sure. Yeah. So, but thank you. I wanted to update you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I got Johnny Girardi from the CEO and founder of DataSelf. Why don't you tell us how the summit has been for you?
It's been awesome. I'm a big data geek. You know, I was a software engineer my early career, became a business person. For the past 20 years, I've been solving two business problems. The first one is decision makers being frustrated that they have the data, is in their digital systems, and too many times they need to call data geeks to get the answer to their questions, so frustrating for them. And the second problem that we solve is, business analysts, they have to always keep up with the requests to build new reports, and sometimes they lose weekends and nights keeping up with the demand. So I've been solving the two problems for the past 20 years. And here at Acumatica, we've been with Acumatica this is the 7th, 8th summit. It's been the biggest traffic with the biggest quality of traffic. I was in two different breakout sessions. The one from yesterday was called From Data Zero to Data Hero. Full 200 plus people. NetStock did their presentation, very informative things about how they help inventory planning and whatnot. And then it showed how DataSelf helps decision-making process. And our take usually, in a nutshell, is if you are keep on asking for GI, you need BI.
Yeah, like if they just keep asking for a new GI, another new GI, another new GI, you probably need BI.
You need a BI because primarily a GI is a slice of your data. Let's say if you want to see sales by customer by year, you need to build a GI. Now you want to see sales by customer by month, is another GI. So if you keep on asking for GIs to see slices of your data, with BI, once you build the framework, slicing that's your data, you as a business person can do it without calling anyone else.
Makes sense. Yeah, and you're pulling data from multiple places. Like I just learned you have a Jameis Prime government contractor edition, if you will, of data self. You are pulling e-commerce data, so you're also like tying different worlds together, different systems together, right? And delivering value to the business user. It's not just about Acumatica data that's sitting there, right?
As a decision maker, quite often you manage multiple, even if you manage one department, let's say sales, you might have Acumatica as the sales tool for fulfillment and whatnot, for orders, for receivables. Maybe your CRM is in Acumatica, maybe it's Salesforce, maybe it's HubSpot. Usually sales has connection with marketing, and then you have Google Analytics and other tools. So even though you're managing one department, quite often you have multiple digital systems to do your job. And usually every digital system has its own reporting tool that only shows that part of your business. And with the BI, you can actually bring Acumatica, all data, AP, AR, GL and whatnot. You can bring CRM, let's say Salesforce or Acumatica or HubSpot, Google Analytics. You can see inventory information that is not in Acumatica. As a decision maker, you're not doing the Acumatica work, but you want to see the Acumatica data with other systems. And BI is a tool to combine everything together in a single place for better information making.
In my experience demoing Acumatica in the past, I would notice the executives, when they see the dashboards in Acumatica, they light up always. Right. And I knew what was happening. And I maybe should have said something but wouldn't, but I could just see it. I realized what they really were looking for was a BI tool. And this is a common mistake. They think that by buying a new ERP system with these cool looking out of the box dashboards, that they're getting a BI tool. They don't have that language. They don't know what the difference is between a dashboard and BI, but that's the reality of it. And so then they buy a new ERP, and eventually they wind up back in the same spot with a ton of reports. And even though Acumatica has cool looking dashboards, actually the under the hood part of that is not a BI tool. So anyways, I've seen that story a lot, and I guess what I'm going at is people really want that. They maybe just don't know what's called BI.
Yeah, and I have a little bit of extra color to your comment.
Okay.
I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've been working with multiple ERPs. And in my first 10 years doing this work as data geek, every time that I heard a ERP company coming with a new reporting, some kind of tool, I was thinking, I'm screwed.
Right.
Then I would open the hood. No, I'm not. Eventually.
And it didn't take long, right?
No, it took me 10 years to realize.
No, but I mean, it didn't take long to figure out that you weren't. You were okay after you opened the hood.
Yeah. No, I'm not.
You're like, oh, there's not that much here.
Oh, just open it. No, I'm not. But the main thing that took me 10 years to realize, and this is to me is not easy, that's why is many people don't know, is when you design an ERP, or we call an OLTP, online transaction processing, any OLTP, Acumatica, Salesforce, anything that's capturing data, the focus of the tool is to get data in for helping automating one transaction at a time.
Right.
And if they are focused on that problem, which is a big problem, you're automatically making it difficult for getting the data out.
Right.
They are two different frameworks. The mindset, the technology, the approach is completely different. And people who do great with ERP, Acumatica, they do great with ERP. They are not a BI company, and that's how I'm funding my kids' college.
That makes sense. One analogy I like is if you try to report, with an ERP reporting tool, you wind up with something that's like a high-rise apartment building, where there's a ton of data and there's a ton of individual units, but it's not pleasant to live in. When you are designing a report with a BI tool, you wind up with like a nice house, right? And it's different the way you store the data, blah blah blah, technically, but the end result, it feels very different, right? You're not just looking at tons of transactions, you're looking at something that's a nice experience for you.
It's an interesting perspective. The way that I try to make an analogy that is related to non-techy terms is microscope and telescope.
Okay. Yes. Yes. That's a good one.
An
I like that one.
OLTP system,
Yes,
again, ERP, they are focused on getting data in and working with small data sets. Every time you use the Acumatica reporting platform, which is amazing, among ERP systems, Acumatica reporting tools are freaking amazing.
Agree.
But as an OLTP system, from a data geek standpoint, is a microscope.
That
If
makes
you're looking at
sense,
small data sets, small tables, it's amazing.
Yeah.
The problem is decision makers, they need a telescope,
Yeah.
the binocular, and the microscope all in a single place that they can change the land as they need it without
Yes.
calling the expert. And that's
Makes
BI.
sense. That makes sense.
Telescope, microscope, binocular is the BI tool.
Yes, like, Acumatica's reporting tools are good at, hey, did I forget to do something on a specific transaction? A BI tool is good at something like, hey, can you just divide my sales last month between who were new customers and who were existing customers? That type of 50,000 foot view, right?
I've been trying to hire you, man.
Well, hey, glad you had a good show here. And
No, let me just.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
This angle that you just took, which by the way, I just got a little blank in my mind. What you were talking about?
So like the two examples for me, one would be like a ERP reporting tool can catch something on a specific transaction, right, at that microscope view.
Right.
But a BI tool is good at what is complicated from a technical standpoint.
Thank you.
New customers versus existing customer sales, something like that.
No, thank you. I'm sorry. My mind is almost.
No problem. We're all tired after.
What I'm saying is that OLTP reporting is what you're doing today. BI is how you're doing.
There you go.
So what you're doing is your staff. What you're doing,
Yeah.
do you doing well? Is microscope amazing. How you're doing is big picture.
Yeah.
So that's how we summarize between the two.
Well, obviously there's a need for it, or you wouldn't have had such a flood at your booth after your sessions.
Absolutely. Super excited.
Thanks. Good to see you, Johnny.
Nice to see you too.
Okay, I've got Doug Johnson here, and I just got one question for you. Have you ever received any commission for selling so many Acer laptops?
I have not, but we've quadrupled their sales since we've started the Revision 2 company.
Okay, there you have it from the source. Okay, I've got some feedback from a first-time attendee of Summit and maybe a little bit of comparisons to other conferences that you've been to. Go ahead, fire away.
Yeah, so I think that this conference is very well made. There's a lot of passion, a lot of energy around the product, and clearly everybody's here because they love Acumatica. I think that the biggest opportunity and the biggest miss is that a lot of small and medium businesses, they share common problems. And although it's nice to see panels about specific wins and specific, applications, it would be great to have more organic ways of exchanging, ideas as well as opportunities for selling more between those folks that are, providing those solutions, whether it be VARs, ISVs in general. So overall, I think it's a great place, but I think that's where the rubber meets the road.
Love the idea. I'm a big proponent of that kind of stuff myself. Let's get into mechanics. Have you seen it done at other conferences? Like, how do you get people in a room, get them to connected to people they care about being connected to, and B, get them to actually talk to each other?
I mean, you could do a lot of work pre-conference, right? You could say, hey, take some surveys of what are some of your biggest challenges. Maybe do it by industry, maybe do it by application or by module, whatever the case, to start kind of segmenting the folks and then start matching them and say, hey, look, we're going to have a conversation about AI, right? But it's more, hey, let's talk about it in a smaller setting, less of a show and tell. I think it's important to celebrate successes, but it's also important to celebrate and also analyze where things went wrong so you can learn from them.
So like more roundtables by some kind of topic, and it all comes down to defining that topic list.
Right, like every year it's going to be different. What would be neat here is because we have so many different industries, so many different people from all over, the world, is that you can start learning from other industries and you can start hearing ideas that maybe you didn't think was good for your particular industry, that you can go and apply and talk to your VAR or talk to your internal folks and try to make that happen. So,
have you seen another conference do that well that Acumatica could copy from?
The only one that maybe does it okay is the Offshore Technology Conference, is an oil and gas conference that does a lot of forward-thinking challenges regarding, oil and gas exploration or, production in general. But it does tend to be, less organic than what I would enjoy, right? Which would be more conversational, and there's also a lot of competition in those. Whereas here, the advantage of it is that it's likely that you do have some competitors here, but it's also likely you can find folks that are in your competition but are sharing your problems.
And that conference has an advantage because it's one industry. Everyone shares that. So maybe that's your starting point. You break people down by industry, and that could be it, industry editions, and then you maybe give 3 or 4 topics within each one and have a little more of the breakout room real estate allocated to roundtable, random, like it's more like a bar discussion that you're looking for.
Yeah, it's like almost like, okay, let's match people up based on not just interest, but also the business challenges that they're facing. And then you have that data, and then I'm sure you can have a lot of people in the back end submit some sort of program to support that alongside some of these panels, right? So it's almost like you get out of a panel and then people leave. Well, why don't you stay and discuss also, right? And so make it less about how great Acumatica is, because people already believe that here. Talk about what you did to solve the problem, but maybe also talk about other problems that could be solved in different ways in more of a conversational piece.
And the devil's advocate might say, well, we also want prospects to buy Acumatica when they come here, but ironically, I think those roundtables are better tools for prospects than the glitzy stuff on stage. I don't know what you think about that.
I think it shows the art of the possible, right? It's like, oh, well, if they had that problem and they were able to solve it,
right,
XYZ reasons, then there's a good chance that I can apply some of those lessons to me, or maybe I haven't even thought about that problem just yet because I'm a young organization and I need to get ahead of it, so I need to talk to my VAR or I need to talk to an ISV to get ahead of it. So I think it's all positive if you look at it that way.
Love it. Great feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I've got Kerry Mann here to give an elder statesman perspective on Acumatica over the years. I got to hold it.
Oh, you're too kind. I'll call you Mr. Rodman for that.
Thank you, sir.
The delightful thing about these events is meeting people like you. And, we've been in the ecosystem for such a long time. There's so much tenure, so much experience, and really seeing the whole Acumatica ecosystem grow up and mature. From when I jumped on the bus in 2016, which was well after you got involved, already I've seen it mature so much. It's like anything else coming out of its infancy into maturity. It's a delight to see and delight to work in. And in any growth cycle, there are challenges along the way. You skin your knees a little bit. But as long as you stay focused on the end goal, it can be delightful. So I think hasn't been without its challenges, but I would characterize the journey as being delightful.
Good word for it. And even, personally, I believe when you started the journey, you had your own company and then you sold it off. You want to comment anything about that journey?
Yeah, I think that was more sort of a personal journey in terms of elevating to the next stage of life. And that has been, experientially very rich and personally very rewarding. Win-win-win all the way around.
Now you're working at, what is it, MNP, I think one of the largest accounting firms in Canada, is that right?
That's right.
Interesting.
MNP is the largest Canadian accounting firm and diverse in the services, so we are quote-unquote specialty service for them. So the journey continues on, and that's been very, very rewarding as well, and very enriching.
And that one's interesting to me. Normally I think of a large accounting firm, I just think of them doing SAP, Oracle, stuff like that. But here you've got a very large accounting firm in Canada, and they're doing Acumatica. Is there anything like that stands out about that to you, or that a firm in the U.S. could learn from? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, so MNP self-statedly is focused on the mid-market. If the client grows too large, they will yield it to the big four.
Got it.
And they're hyper-focused on that space. So the technology practice, MNP Digital, correspondingly focused on the same space, and Acumatica sort of fits well along with some of the other vendors.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's been synergistic to that end for them.
Well, thank you, sir, for your seasoned perspective.
Thank you. You're very kind. Delightful to see you as always.
All right, I've got Harsha. Harsha's been on before. I think you've been on the podcast before.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So you got an update to e-signature that you're working on. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a new version that we're releasing, which is called the AirSign, which is a part of the e-signature module. So AirSign lets you remotely capture signature just like DocuSign, but it's all powered through Acumatica webhooks. So we're using Acumatica framework to do that. So we're quite excited because something that we've always been doing with e-signature, capturing it within Acumatica, and then also being able to interface with an hardware signature pad. But now we have the AirSign, which is sign a signature in the cloud.
Okay, so help me out. What does that look like in the real world? So on a signature pad, I can picture that someone signs on. What was that? What was the Topaz? Is that what you were
Topaz.
using? Yeah.
Topaz was the hardware.
So like you can someone could sign on the Topaz. What is air? Do I just wave my hand into the air and it captures a signature, or what does that mean?
That's a great one. So air sign is like I just went with this concept of like everything in the cloud, right? It's in the air, or it's up there. And so what you do is you just be on any document or any screen like sales order, opportunity, or sales code, and then hit a button, send an email for signature.
Okay.
And then the link gets sent to via email to the client. They click on it. They will be able to see the document, which is if it's an opportunity, you will see the sales code document. If it's a sales order or shipment, you will see the shipment document.
Okay.
The PDF will be loaded.
Okay.
And one side of the panel and the other side will be the signature thing that we accept. So you agree and to whatever the terms and conditions are, whatever the proposal is, or whatever the shipment is, and then you're able to sign and submit the document. So you can do it from anywhere, anytime, any access, any device.
So the document itself that the person is looking at, was that designed in Report Designer and Acumatica?
right.
It's that normal
That's right.
document.
That's normal document.
So is what opened the door to this possibility the fact that you can now retrieve a report over the API?
The API.
Okay.
I
So
can push any document that was generated in the Acumatica.
I see.
I don't want to necessarily take a signature on the document and the PDF like what DocuSign does.
Yes.
I would say read through all the terms and conditions. Your consent is on the right side. You
Got
agree,
it.
sign it, simple. It comes back. The signature is stored. Now take my signature, rerun the report with the signature imprinted into it. Boom.
got it. Okay, so you've kind of segregated out instead of where DocuSign's got the report and the signatures together. How about legally? Like legally, how do you make sure that that signature is really tied to that document? You know, rather.
So those are some areas that we have to work with the client, each one of them, just see what their terms and conditions are and who their clientele list is and how much they're bounded by that. But electronic signature by definition is there a consent to
Yeah.
sign electronically.
Yeah.
If there is no consent, then don't sign.
Yeah.
If there is, that means you acted on it. And then of course we have, you could use a name or you can just use your stylus.
Yeah,
right?
just a mark is good
A
enough
mark is
legally,
good enough,
right?
legally.
Yeah, yeah.
Saying that I do agree and consent, and they have to check that.
Okay.
So once you do that, then the rest is all legal aspects. Your legal business, what you are doing, your terms and condition. Get that through a legal counsel done. Put that as a link that people can click on it and see what that legal terms are. Mm-hmm. And then we do have certain area where you can say terms and condition. I agree and that the shipment I received is everything is intact. If you're doing shipments claim, I agree to the proposal that you sent and I acknowledge that I'm going to pay for it. So
Okay.
whatever, that's your terms and condition. But the beauty of this is you're sending a document out from Acumatica into the cloud, and the person can access it anywhere. Of course, there is some other areas of security which we're working on. So we're going to do better testing with few to see how it works out under this very strict terms and conditions. Mm-hmm. And then the good thing is you don't have to pay for DocuSign or other ones per user or per document. This is unlimited.
And so this cloud is your cloud. It's not even you're not using a service on the back end.
Now this is Acumatica Cloud.
Oh,
It's all
and so
Acumatica's platform.
okay, you got to help me out there. So Acumatica is great
Yeah.
as an ERP interface,
Right.
not great as like a customer mobile app. Like someone clicks on that link and they authenticate into Acumatica. No, what are they? What URL are they hitting when they launch it?
Let's say it's xyz.acumatica.com. That XYZ is the company name. So the URL,
Okay.
the webhook URL will continue to form with the same URLs. It will continue to grow. So the structure.
But they're actually hitting the regular Acumatica server when they click on that.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And it's
And
a
then
good experience.
It uses the webhooks.
Interesting.
So you trust Acumatica and the hosting and everything else. Then why wouldn't you not trust this? The document is given
Sure.
to the end user, and the end user acts on it, and it's submitted back to the webhook again, and it's all retrieved.
And do they have to log in when they make
Nope.
the signature? Oh, so you're leveraging the Acumatica web server so you don't have to fire up another instance and worry about security and all that, but you're not forcing them to log in. It's almost like your own version of a customer portal. It's like an anonymous customer portal a little bit.
That's right.
Oh, interesting. Ooh,
So-
this sounds very interesting. Okay.
Never has been done by anybody, so you know what? This is something, the secret sauce, and our signature has been working great for last 5-6 years.
Yeah, this is not like a new territory
It's
for
not a new
you.
territory.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
we have customers all across US, Canada, South Africa, So people over there uses Topaz, and we had some issues with the Topaz blocking the IP address of South Africa.
Okay.
So anyway, we got that resolved with the support.
Oh,
So
interesting. You've got experience here.
yeah, so we're gonna go with the entire e-signature suite, which is accept signature inside Acumatica on any screens. Use retail front Topaz signature pad integration with the hardware.
Okay.
Now comes the AirSign, which is remotely capture signature anywhere, anytime, any device.
Very cool. Harsha Sarjapur from Info Sourcing. Reach out to him if you've got e-signature needs there.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tim.
So we got Laura Jaffe here. I wonder, what new feature she might be excited about. Let's hear it.
Hey, Tim. So I think you can guess the feature I am most excited about is the ability to reference other generic inquiries in a generic inquiry. Yes,
really?
I am super excited about that. Are you?
I'm very excited. And, when I first saw it, it didn't occur to me that they also checked the box for subqueries. But after talking to Vladimir Panchekov about it, he explained that they decided to go the route of basically you would just do a subquery and then join to it. So basically they are checking both boxes. They're not going to do a separate feature for subquery. Do you
nice.
feel like based on your expansive knowledge of how queries work that you'll be able to do all the subqueries you need?
Well, to be honest, I haven't played
We'll
with
find
it,
out, right?
so
We'll
we'll find out.
Yeah,
I certainly hope so.
So he was telling me that, I really haven't done hardcore SQL for years, and he was telling me that the way SQL's execution plans have evolved over the years, I remember you used to need to do like a sub-select in the select statement before the tables to get it to perform well, but he said now the execution plans perform well on the joins as well. So the real world will be the real test, but I guess bottom line is we're not expecting to see subqueries where we've got it now in 24-hour one with the ability to join to another generic inquiry.
Exactly.
Give me a use case that you're looking to tackle next week when you get back.
Use case, yeah. So my use case has to do with drilling down into multiple levels of a BOM where I need to get the material requirements for the lower levels. So we would
and add them up.
Well, not necessarily add them up, but add them up. So
like
in order
on that
to
main view.
On that main view, to be able to get all the material requirements at every level. So in the standard Acumatica reports, you're gonna lose that visibility into which part was material and which part was labor, for example, on those lower sub-assemblies. So we've looked at doing that with views. Right now we are doing that with SQL views in some cases, and I'd like to be able to take those views and bring those back into Acumatica so that we could blow down through those multiple levels, create a series of views to do that.
So I like that you just start with the view route because you know how to do what you want to do with the view. Then what's your motivation to convert it over to this new method? Why not just leave it in a view? Geeky coolness or more than that?
No, not just geeky coolness. Yeah, so my goal really is always to stay within the software.
Gotcha.
And we do have some methods such as AUG SQL where we can connect directly to the SQL, but it's always more portable and gives you just better support when you're staying
for the sake of upgrades, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So
that's fair.
yep.
That's fair. All right. Well, I'm also looking forward to playing with it, and I'm really looking forward to hear your feedback from it as you start working with it tonight.
Exactly. I got to get that preview edition on my laptop and get in there.
Well, thank you very much, Laura.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Great talking to you. Love.
Okay, we got Brian here. Brian's got some advice with Acumatica dashboards. You probably saw some cool dashboards when you originally bought Acumatica. Now you've been collecting data. I think you're specifically talking about CRM data. When you're ready to get a cool dashboard on your data, do you just click a button, or is it a little more involved in that?
It's quite a bit more involved in that. We sit in some of them and they'll say, I've got these dashboards, these do these great things, but there really hasn't been a course or a push to show us how to build them. You've got to dig pretty hard, and then trying to get the data to correlate and match up to what you want to do is a little difficult. When I got done yesterday in the sessions, I just went back to the hotel room and sat down, and for about an hour and a half just figured out how to now get to where I can start to build them, but the widgets aren't working properly and giving the correct data yet. So we've got still going to have some work to do to get that going before I can kind of teach that to my teams.
Makes sense. Yeah. The good news is the end result is worth it. So I think a lot of it's about setting expectations, right? It's just not a one click and poof, it's there. You have to go through the blood, sweat, and tears to get it. But it sounds like you're willing to do that. You need to know that going into it.
Absolutely, 100%.
So don't sit down on a Monday morning, expect to have it done by a 10 o'clock meeting, right?
No. It will probably be, in order to get it ironed out, really get into it, even if you know what you're probably going to spend a couple of days getting things lined out the way you want. You have no idea what you're going to take a lot longer.
And then you're going to show it to someone and they're going to say, cool, but can you? And then you're going to keep going back and forth to add things. So the real process is probably weeks. Yep. And even then, a dashboard's always kind of a living thing. You're going to keep adding to it, right?
Yeah, and I think that one of the good features is going to be copy and paste. Right?
Yeah.
So I get a template done. I get one set up to show me what I want, and then I can copy that, paste it into another area, and kind of adjust parameters here. So that'll be a good one once you get the first one done we want it. It's copying it and pasting that and kind of build.
Great practical real world advice. Thank you, Brian.
Most definitely. Have a good day.
Okay, we got a feature request here, something to do with auto packaging. Go ahead, let's hear it.
Yeah, so in Acumatica, if you have auto packaging defined by item, where it will create the boxes for you on a shipment, I would like Acumatica to also put the goods in the boxes that it creates automatically. Right now, it gives you all the packaging defined, and all the packaging is empty, so the customer still has to go in and put the items in the boxes that Acumatica already knows what shipping and where.
So I did not know about that hole, but it kind of makes sense because I think that auto packaging feature existed before the content in the boxes feature. So it doesn't surprise me that gap is there. You've discovered it, though, in the real world. So.
Very good. Let's get it fixed.
So have you created an idea on the community forum for it?
I don't know the answer to that, but my developer has fixed it for some of our customers.
Okay. So get off your butt and create an idea on the community forum for it, all right? And then people can know.
Everybody can vote for it.
So what are we going to use in the title so they know what to search for? Auto boxing instead of just auto packaging?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Something like that?
Yeah.
Auto's going to be in there.
Auto will be in there.
Packaging will be in there.
Yep.
So auto packaging with some other blurb after it.
That sounds great.
That's how they'll find it.
Yeah.
All right. You'll do that by the end of the week?
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool. Awesome. Thank you. All right, so we've got a VAR here to talk about the journey of a future customer. I love how the badges say future customer instead of prospect. So we can have a VAR here, talk about how they how they convince this future customer to become an actual customer before the end of Summit. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So this particular customer when they came to us initially, they are very, very unique, but they knew this about themselves, and they've had a 30-year-old, extremely custom system that has been in place and configured like crazy. But when they reached out through Acumatica to us, a big thing that really helped, I'm not going to say convince, but just that helped in the process of showing them how serious we were as a partner and how the product can help Acumatica, we went on site and took the time to visit them, see their whole unique process, and really gain a really good understanding, at least initial understanding, of what the challenges were going to be, and talk to them about, yes, this happens out of the box, that's possible, this is going to be a customization. They knew that. They had done their research already, and they knew how unique they were. Nothing out there is made for them. But with the platform and showing them that, hey, 90% of what you need is already there, we're just going to have to make a couple of customizations for your unique situation. They knew this. Meeting with them was amazing because they prepped everything. They prepped the inventory people. They prepped the order entry people, and were able to sit down and show us in detail, what their unique challenges were. And that, I think, really helped go a long way to convincing them that, yeah, we can make it happen.
So you hear that the average buyer nowadays, not just for ERP, but for anything, by the time they land in your funnel as a lead, they're already way more educated than the average buyer at that point, 20 years ago. And this sounds like a real world example of that.
Very much, very much. They had done their research. They talked with multiple ERP providers. And I think just going on site to show them that we're committed to actually following this thing through and seeing and saying, at that point, we weren't really trying to sell them so much as just see if it could actually happen, and we were comfortable that the solution would fit, and that really helped. Plus, meeting them was great. They're lovely people.
And, maybe talk to us about how them coming to Summit helped you to convince them to jump with 2 feet into Acumatica.
Because they were, at that point, so close to already being a customer, we're like, come to Summit, feel the energy, feel what Acumatica is about, talk to other customers, talk to other partners, ISVs that can potentially help. So we signed them up for Summit, I think, before you signed your Acumatica deal. So it was perfect.
This person is standing right here, but just not a little microphone shy, which is totally fine. When did you put the physical or digital pen in their hand? Was it over a nice dinner here at Summit? How did that?
We had
Any
a
tips there?
lovely dinner. Yeah. Hey, whining and dining never hurts, right? Exactly. It did not happen at 2 a.m. after a long night of gambling, though. It was before that.
Well, great practical advice on how to close a deal here at Summit.
Thanks, Tim.
So what do you want me to say?
So I got Adam here. Adam's from Pollywood. He was on stage during one of the keynotes. And do you have any level of enthusiasm about starting a user group in Northern Indiana? There's someone else out there, and even anywhere in Indiana, would you host them? Or
Great question. So yeah, I remember early in my career being able to utilize user groups and how valuable they were. And so I'm a big believer in the power of user groups. And so yeah, we are definitely looking to start to host a user group somewhere. We're out of Syracuse, Indiana, so South Bend, Fort Wayne, Warsaw area, anything that's within a reasonable drive for people to kind of come and collaborate together on how we can get more value out of Acumatica.
And do you have a room that's big enough to hold 20 people or so? Or?
Oh yeah, easily.
Yeah,
so
okay.
yeah, we have a cafeteria on site that we can convert to meeting space.
Okay.
We got some good space.
So you have the hard part done. You have the logistics to carry one out. You just need bodies. Sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. So we just need interested parties that are willing to join.
If you're driving distance to Northern Indiana, South Bend, etc., reach out to Adam. What is your last name? Stoffel. Stoffel from Pollywood.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, I got someone who attended an API session, this morning? Mm-hmm. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you learned there.
Yeah, absolutely. So for someone who's kind of coming into it brand new to APIs, this was really good for an introductory. Hey, what are kind of the different methodologies for it, some best practices, as well as what are some of the different solutions that you use, using Postman or different middlewares. So for someone who's really starting to dip their toes into everything, it was a phenomenal session, really.
And so are you like a developer or more of a consultant type?
Consultant type. So it's kind of funny, right? You're starting to see the what else can I do to expand my capabilities aside from customizations, or really take things to the next level to offer our clients the best.
Not a developer, but opening up Postman is not scary, and you can do a lot of the work and then at least be more educated to write the spec for someone to write the middleware. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Exactly,
of?
100%.
Oh, interesting.
And then it's a win-win across the board, and everybody can kind of understand the process thoroughly.
Okay. Anything you picked up about how the APIs are changing, or even just anything that was new to you and kind of helpful for someone who's early on in their API journey?
Yeah, there's certainly talks about what they're kind of phasing out with these newer versions, and they're the different. I should say that as the software is improving, right, going to 24R1, right? Yep. How is that maybe going to change when we can be able to easily move around fields to make things easier? So I still think it's really
around. Does it change the API?
I don't know. Great questions here, right? This is the territory we're all getting into. Or because we can change everything around, are some of the APIs even going to be needed to try and take out some of that work in the background?
Interesting.
Don't know. This is the new territory.
Okay. So do you feel like, this is an area I could grow into?
Grow into, certainly. Okay. And I was walking into it thinking it was just going to be a room full of developers, and that's the odd duck out with everything. But no, it was a very, very inclusive, and I think those are kind of the more advanced topics or the niche. Really nice for Acumatica Summit to provide value there.
Awesome. Great to hear. So maybe more consultants out there will be following a similar journey and getting into APIs. Thanks for sharing.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
All right. So I know from a technical perspective why people care about the move to .NET Core, but I've got someone here who's at a VAR on the solutions selling side of things like pre-sales, and they care about .NET Core. So how do you get a prospect even to care about .NET Core? I guess maybe we start with why you personally care about .NET Core, even though you're not a developer or you're not on the implementation side.
So from a .NET Core perspective, it really allows Acumatica to steadfast in their claim that they are, number one, a technology company, but that they're providing a future-proof platform. And when you make that claim and now you back it up with we're moving our back end and our framework in a .NET Core, which is, what's going to carry the framework of the product for the next, 10, 15 years or more, it lets you reinforce and make a real claim, make that claim. I think there's a lot of skepticism in the ERP space, especially about what people affectionately call vapor.
Yes.
And
yes.
it's future proof. What does that mean? It sounds right. It's what nowadays it's what ChatGPT kicked out, right? So I think it certainly helps there. But I think from and again, I'll to your point, I'll try to stay away from the technical side of it. I think that it also gives us the ability to continue to deliver a solution that's transformative in the respect of, you got a lot of people now that are great business analysts, or they're really talented in a particular area of the application, but they're not a technical person. So they not only do they not know how to, of course, write the C# and do all that stuff, but they also don't even really know how to ask for it with respect to the business logic. So with the .NET Core back end and some of the new stuff on the front end and the new UI, they're now having truly low-code, no-code tools. And what that meant before is that you had a UI element with a customizer, and you can create fields and move them around, but you still had to kind of know what you were doing technically. And then you'd see this thing build out and compile a customization, and you're like, what is this thing doing? Well, now, with this move, you're going to have a low-code, no-code set that allows you to literally, on a UI, drag and drop fields and adjust your tab settings and move things around. And it's literally as simple as understanding clicking and dragging and dropping. It's no longer just, well, how do you use the customizer, right? So I think it gives us the ability to come to market with a solution that not only, again, says, hey, we truly are future-proof, but here's how you use this to continue to really make it work for your business versus making your business adhere to the tool. So it gives you just the flexibility and the configurability. And then to take it one step further, it's now not even about having a tool that's specific to your business, but the user in the business. So I want to see X, Y, and Z, and Tim wants to see A, B, and C, and we don't have to compromise or agree on what that is. I see what I need to see. He's what he wants to see in the UI and the UX is exactly what your users really need to drive, that digital transform and such.
It sounds like as a pre-sales person at a VAR, you're just excited to be able to have the bullet points and the PowerPoint to talk to it and prove that it's a real thing and not vaporware. But I would think crafting demos for prospects, you would also be able to use a little more of the low-code, no-code functionality to get rid of tabs or whatever to make the thing look even more like it's tailored to their business, because you don't have to get development involved. Like, you wouldn't do a full-blown development life cycle in the sales cycle, but you could probably go a little deeper, I would think, in crafting your demo to make it even better, more tailored to the prospect. Is that fair to say?
Oh, absolutely. And I think one thing that we certainly do, and whether it differentiates us from other VARs, but I think it certainly differentiates from other a solution in a competitive nature, and I think it's what Acumatica has done a good job of encouraging us to do and coaching us and certifying us on what to do, is to tailor and really deliver a good demo. And what that takes is the ability to, sometimes it's slapping on a logo and putting a few pieces of data in there, but sometimes it really is using the workflow engine. Sometimes it's using some of the customizer important fields and pieces of information there that you just really need there for the customer or the prospect to be able to appreciate the capabilities, but also really it resonates with them and they can really conceptualize it. And to do that and deliver a great demo, sometimes you face this battle, if you will, of how much effort and time do I put into something that at the end of the day does or doesn't come to fruition. So there could be some sunk cost. Well, with the new low-code, no-code tools, I can start thinking, well, yeah, it takes me 5 minutes to move the tabs. It takes me a couple minutes to throw those fields up there. It takes me just a second to change that layout that really will just make this a home run and make the customers not just understand more, but really see themselves in the seat as a user of the application and see their business running on Acumatica and truly using the Acumatica platform and ERP CRM solution to really transform their business.
So I'll flip the script on you. I could see a drooling VAR president saying, "Oh, okay, .NET Core lowers the cost of pre-sales for me." Well, it might lower the cost in time, but I think the more tools now that you have to be able to wield as a pre-sales consultant makes you more valuable and more costly from a labor perspective. So you executives out there trying to cut costs, I wouldn't think that means your pre-sales is cheaper from a staffing standpoint, but I think maybe it's a little cheaper, or maybe it's not cheaper. Maybe you're just delivering a better demo in the same amount of time. Maybe that's a way to look at it. Does any of that resonate with you?
Yeah, I think you make a good point, Tim. I think that I think it changes where you're putting time, and maybe where the cost, of course, come with that, because that's what we're talking about here. But I think the other thing too is perhaps it's an initial investment that has a better ROI. And what I mean by that is I'm going to venture to say that if we were able to and collect the data to look at it from this perspective, I think it's going to make us more successful. I think it's going to improve the
higher
efficacy.
win rate.
Correct. I think it's going to
Yeah.
improve your win rate. I think it's going to create some efficacy. And what I mean by that is, I've been in situations before where as you were doing things, you may have folks in the audience that are looking at it from a different lens, and you may sometimes have to follow up with an additional demonstration to do that. Well, with some of these low-code, no-code tools, like, you may have somebody that's just really stuck, right? And they're like, hey, I can't deal with all those tabs, or why isn't the shipping tab over there? Why is the address tab the last tab?
Yeah. And it's like a huge mental block where you're like, I know
and
it's not a big deal.
They can't get beyond it, and you lose the rest of it. You've lost, and I don't know that you've lost credibility, but they can't get out of their own way at that point.
Sure.
Well, I think with this type of tool, I literally can click a button, drag that address tab to the left, and now they're back on script with me, right?
Yep.
But more importantly, they're also like, oh, this is great because I'm not now stuck in this software that is very prescriptive, very binary, and that's what we battle too. Is the legacy expectation of what ERP is. And Acumatica, Acumatica's been breaking the mold for a while, and I think this is another example of that, where they're absolutely giving us the tools to just to continue to clear those hurdles and get around those roadblocks.
Well, thank you for that VAR pre-sales perspective on a technical topic like .NET Core.
No problem, Tim. Take care, bud. I like your wig.
All right. Well, that's it for now. We'll catch you on the next episode of ogforums.com Real Talk. Thanks for listening, and take care.